Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby.
Hello, and welcome to Movies vs. Capitalism, an anti-capitalist movie podcast. I'm Rivka Rivera.
And I'm Frank Capello.
So, Frank, we're going to jump right in because I've been dying to talk to you about this one particular show that I know we have both started
Engaged
watching. Engaged with. I'm hesitant because I know that we both saw, like, I don't know about you, but I saw the headline for this on Netflix, like that it was out, and I thought, no, this is like a Black Mirror joke. So we're talking about Squid Game, the challenge. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it's because Squid Game
Singular. Yeah.
was,
although there are multiple games in the game. So, but the South Korean show Squid Game is where the genesis of this. Yeah.
Yes, was a TV series, Netflix, that a lot of people have asked, like, we've been wanting to cover on this show because it is like a deeply anti-capitalist film or series, and it's basically about a bunch of people who go into this surrealist game show to fight for millions of dollars, and they actually, once they get there, they find out that the game is if you lose, you die, and you get shot on the spot. That's right. That's the essence of it.
Yes, that is the essence of it. And then I'll just add, and these are people like on the margins of society.
Yes.
You know, these are people with like gambling addictions. These are people with like, you know, massive amounts of debt. These are people who are homeless. So yeah, so it's like these rich, you know, ultra rich billionaire types who are essentially using poor people as pawns for their entertainment.
They really make an effort in the TV series to fill out the characters so you understand, like, there's no other option under the extremities of like where capitalism has taken this society, and so this is why people go say yes to playing the Squid Game. Now, Squid Game, the challenge, you could say similarly, actually, because the people they're feeling like we don't have a choice right now in America. And a lot of people up top who, when they interview the players, are saying things just like this. One person says off the top an actual quote from a contestant on the show: $4.56 million. People do a whole lot worse for a whole lot less. And another contestant says, who's not in debt? We're facing a recession. I'm not getting paid by work for this, but I'm dreaming big, taking a chance.
Yeah, and if we haven't made it clear, like, this is what we're talking about is a reality TV show, like reality competition show on Netflix, basically set in the world of Squid Game. So
literally frame by frame, the whole game. It looks just like the show.
Yes, it looks just like the show. The people are not dying when they get eliminated because, you know, Netflix is, as of yet, not legally allowed to do that.
But let me tell you what, they get hit really hard with a paint gun and they have to play dead. It's so surreal. They fall down dead. Yes,
it's extremely surreal. So there's a lot of different angles to come at this from. I mean, first of all, there's on the surface, you know, Netflix had this massive hit, this show Squid Game, and then immediately was like, okay, now how do we franchise this? How do we use this IP? Because, you know, it went from being just like this original story to then, after its massive success, becoming this extremely valuable piece of intellectual property. And I think it was, I remember reading shortly after the show had exploded, like this reality show, Squid Game, the challenge, getting greenlit. I remember reading that. I was like,
God.
We're fucked. Okay. So there's already that, like, Squid Game, the show, is a deeply anti-capitalist, deeply critical show about our economic system, and then immediately franchises itself into this like bastard reality show version. So that's like the first layer of analysis.
And I just to jump on that, I literally, my note was like, what is satire anymore? I mean, I think it was so disturbing for that reason that I'm just like, if they immediately commodify and capitalize on this story that we really thought is, and it is, but like, I don't know. I guess the question is, does it lessen it? It certainly lessens it a little bit for me. How can you watch it knowing that immediately? Because, okay, my immediate thought was, certainly the director has something to say about this, right? Could you imagine writing this and then having your peak late stage capitalist nightmare just come to fruition? Like, you created this monster. So I looked it up, and I don't even know what to do with this. So the director said, when being asked about the reality show, I think this was an Entertainment Weekly article, "Yes, I'm aware of the reality show being created. I actually met with the creator yesterday, and they had many questions for me. What I hope is that they will be carrying on my vision and intention as much as possible for the show," to which my thought was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what? Second, like, how? In what way? It's a reality show. You know the premise. And then goes on to say, "I think that even though our show does carry quite a heavy message, and I know there are some concerns of taking that message and creating it into a reality show with a cash prize. However, I feel like whenever you take things too seriously, that's not really the best way to go for the entertainment industry. Doesn't really set a great precedent. So I would say that reproductions of such efforts are going to bring new meaning to the industry. And I hope that this is going to be a great new direction for the industry overall." Like, what the fuck are you talking? Who are you? I felt like, did they take this person who made such a brilliant anti-capitalist series and replace them with AI? Like, what?
Or just like co-opted, or I have no idea. And now I'm curious. I want to like dig deeper into like the machinations behind the scenes, because I'm wondering, you know, like
how much he got paid.
How much he got paid, like, or also was this solely Netflix's decision? You know, like, had he in selling Squid Game the series to Netflix, did he sign over basically all the reproduction and franchising of this series or of this IP? So like maybe this was a decision that he doesn't even get to weigh in on. Maybe this was like Netflix just being like, "Hey, guess what? We're making a reality show out of your show."
And he signed a contract where he has to like cheerlead it. That's what I don't get. I could see that, but I'm like, why the promotion?
I mean, if I'm gonna pretend to be like a psychotherapist for a second, I think, you know, it's someone operating within the traditional media, as, you know, as non-traditional as like streaming is. At this point, it is like it's supplanting traditional media. So working within that ecosystem, you know, this guy, like, he has his deal with Netflix. You know, he's making the Squid Game, the actual TV series, the second season. So I'm sure it's a lot of internal grappling with, like, you don't want to.
I'm not here for that.
I'm not here for that either, but I'm just like, I'm theorizing here. It's like, you know, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. You don't want to shit where you eat.
That. I feel like, I don't know. I know. I mean, I think it's like, it's a hard, but I guess I just, you know what it is? I feel so let down because I just like, I really buy into like where it was so.
It was pure. It felt pure.
It felt so pure. And I mean, like, this feels so, it's one thing if it's like a little change. To sell the whole freaking reality show in this dystopic way where you have literally 456 players and they're like competing and they have the ball of money, everything that you like. To me as an artist, it's like, well, you're just basically saying your concept was bullshit. Like, you didn't really believe any, like, to me, that's what it says. Like, I don't know. That's where I'm at. It really upset me. On top of it, what you should know is that, so there, like, as I said, there's 456 players at the top of this. Frank, they haven't officially set a lawsuit, but players are seeking compensation, a lot of them for injuries that they were sustained.
I did read about this. Yep.
There was like, because they're forced to do all of this stuff. There was like painfully, I think they shot it in New Britain or Britain, and it was really cold. So there was frostbite and hypothermia. They're recreating the conditions of like how that we're watching the first series. Like, wow, capitalism, really, look at how horrible it is to the majority of people and like how disgusting it is. And then we're just going to recreate it as a reality show and you're cool with it as the creator of that. It's so strange to me. I find it deeply depressing. And I don't think like someone like, I can't imagine a Boots Riley would be like, maybe that's me putting someone on a pedestal, and maybe that's me. Maybe that's because Boots Riley was on our show. Check out that episode if you haven't heard it. But like, you know what I'm saying? That just to me seems so like, how do you go to sleep at night? Sorry, It's
Yeah,
weird.
no, I mean he did say in his interview with us that someone wanted to, like do an IP based animated series on the
Right.
Equisapiens, and he was like, yeah, I met with some writers, no one really got it, so I was like, no, I don't want to do it. So yeah, it's possible to stick to your values and not allow the cultural value of, I guess, of what you're creating and your intention behind making it and what you're saying with the piece, not let that be corrupted by what I'm sure is the millions and millions of dollars or just a lot of money that, like the creator of Squid Game is getting paid to, watch real people play his murder games.
Yeah, it's just that deep, it's that elite capture of it all, right? Of like how we're constantly anti-capitalist ideas, and we have to just be this has to be part of our criticism and awareness. Anti-capitalist ideas, anti-racist ideas are continually being co-opted and sold back to us, and this is a really profound example of that. I don't even know what else to say. It's so strange.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is I did watch the first episode, and those lines that you said that were included about, everybody's in debt, people have done a lot worse for a lot less. Like that's like in the first like 3 minutes of the first episode. So I'm seeing that and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is, as much of a contradiction of this show's existence. I was like, maybe they are really going to lean into the spirit of the original Squid Game series and really give a platform for these contestants to talk about economic hardship and what it means and have that be a real thematic through line of this thing. And then
that is
those
such a
two lines,
good faith idea. I love that idea.
I was like, look, I try to enter everything in a good faith, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm like, if they're going to spotlight that, then maybe this makes this fucking bullshit a little bit more palatable and maybe it gives it a little bit more intentionality. But those two lines that you read, or those are the only lines about economic hardship. Then the rest of it is just
the rest are this. I have a few more. For me, everybody is just money. Sympathy is a weakness. My biggest strength, manipulation. We're going to get the best and worst of everyone. Like, it's wild.
Truly wild. All right, we should get to our conversation for today about Zoolander. But before we do, if you're new here, just want to let you know that this podcast that you're listening to is brought to you by The Lever, which is a reader-supported investigative news outlet. And you can go to levernews.com to find all of their original reporting.
As we are trying to practice our anti-capitalist values, we don't sell ads on this show. What we do is rely completely on community support to keep going, which means getting to all of our labor for editing and creating. So if you enjoy this show and you would like to support us, you can head over to mvcpod.com to chip in.
Paid supporters also get access to our monthly premium episodes featuring discussions about even more movies, television, music, podcasts, theater, and anything else we are watching or listening to.
And as a bonus, paid supporters also get access to all of the Lever's premium content, so you'll directly be supporting independent journalism. And again, that is all for just $8 a month, which is a third of a Netflix account, okay? You can also leave us a one-time contribution in our tip jar if you just want to say thanks and you loved a particular episode. Again, all of that info is at mvcpod.com.
You can also help us out for free by leaving a rating and review for this show on your podcast player. Only takes a few seconds. It's very helpful, boosts the algorithm so that more people can find the show, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, let's go to our conversation with Brian Morabito on Zoolander. Hey, everyone. We know that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is at the forefront of everyone's minds right now. So we wanted to take a moment and share some resources with our listeners on how you can help.
You can go to ceasefiretoday.com, which has a list of resources for actions to demand a ceasefire from our Congress people. You can send them mass emails, you can sign a petition, you can find a protest, you can phone bank. They have a call script that will allow you to easily call all of your Congress people. Again, that is ceasefiretoday.com.
And remember, the only way forward is addressing the root causes of violence, Israeli military occupation, and apartheid, and ending U.S. complicity in this oppression.
I know it feels like this crisis is really insurmountable right now, but the more we call our Congress people, the more we show up at marches, the more we do anything and everything will help. So keep at it. If we all do this together, we can actually move the needle. Love you all, solidarity, and stay safe.
Today, we are joined by Brian Morabito. Brian is an actor and comedian in New York, best known for narrating paintings on the internet. He is the creator and host of New York's longest-running environmental drinking show, Drunk Planet Earth, and has been a principal performer on UCB House Team since 2019. If you don't like this episode, you can kill him in Grand Theft Auto 5, where he voices a billionaire who stole an NFT from Dr. Dre.
What?
Welcome, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Wait, you're in Grand Theft Auto 5?
I am in Grand Theft Auto 5, yeah. As my character is a billionaire who stole an NFT of unreleased Dr. Dre's music, and one of the missions is you need to go to my billionaire mansion, find me, and then chase me in my helicopter, shoot down my helicopter, and then kill me on the beach.
Damn, this is like a big mission for your character.
Yeah, it was pretty big. Yeah, and Rockstar is very cool, but they're also a very scary company. Yeah, they're a very litigious company, for justifiably. I love them, no exception, and I love the work that they do, and I genuinely do. But I had a friend who had just done some recording that I knew for them, and this was just after quarantine and lockdown stuff like that. So he had just finished, and he took a selfie of himself in the booth with all the TV screens off. Nobody else was there, and he posted it. Didn't say anything in any caption. He was just like, so excited, I can't say anything, blah, 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 whatever. And then we took a 50 milligram edible because it was Flag Day. And then 45 minutes later, his agent texted him and was like, yikes, that post, they're going to fire you. How could you do this? And he was on a fucking rocket ship being like, no, but you gotta protect the brand. So, what are you going to do?
Now they'll know.
Well, now we're not going to be forwarding this to them, but they're very cool, very nice. But yeah, they are intense about that stuff.
Very cool, very nice, incredibly secretive. They will destroy your career.
Really scary. They have a lot of resources. They know.
But Brian, you're probably good at that. You're a great improviser. You run a show called And Scene, which I was lucky to be in, where you have actors do a scene where we learn the hardest thing I've ever done. You have to learn the lines without learning your partner's lines. And then an improviser comes in and improvises those lines. I had a heartbeat. It was really hard, but it was really fun. But it was, I gotta tell you, quite a challenge.
You were so good.
Yeah, that's why I chose this to banter about, Brian. I was like, tell them all how good I was.
Yeah, not fishing. Took long enough. No, this is a show that my wife, she's a fiance, but I don't.
I was gonna say, when did you guys tie them on?
Wow.
I didn't realize you had already done it.
We didn't. But okay. I don't like saying fiance. So I usually say partner, but there's something very patriotic about calling her my wife. But so this is a show that she produces and she hosts, and like Riv said, we get actors and we assign them a scene and they prepare it and perform it as they normally would, but then they're paired with experienced improvisers who know nothing. And it is so fun, but it is so funny how these actors who are serious, really talented, like Riv, like plenty of friends who are on Broadway and TV's real legit people, are so scared when they do the show. They are so scared because normally when you're learning lines, you're learning based off the event of the scene, or everything you do and everything you say is a reaction on what somebody just said or did, and that is totally out the window. And it's so funny to see the scenes that are most successful are the ones where they're not trying to stick to what the plot of that scene or that show was, right? You're making a new thing with this person here, so it's a real fun thing. And it's a gift to the actors because it's like, this is the only glimpse you can have of what it's like to be a very, very senior, experienced improviser. You know what I mean? Because they can respond non-verbally in the scene, but it is active, intense listening, based on what's in front of you in this moment. And there's the added thing of oh, I know that person from TV, or this is about, you know what I mean? Because,
sure.
Improv can be punishing. But these are people who are very good at it, with the added bonus of, when you see Zach Cherry from Severance, he's the guy with the glasses on Severance, has done the show 3 times, and he's such a talented improviser.
And tell the people when and where, Brian.
Thank you for asking. It's at Caveat Theater on the Lower East Side, and it is usually the third Monday of every month. The next one, I believe, will be November 18th.
And the last thing before we get into our movie conversation, the last thing I'll say is that we know Brian because we all went to theater school together in Pittsburgh. So this is a reunion of sorts. But let's dive into it because, Brian, you picked a movie I was so thrilled to see come over the line. You chose the 2001 comedy Zoolander, the cult classic, directed by Ben Stiller, written by Ben Stiller and Drake Sather and John Hamburg, starring Stiller, Christine Taylor, Owen Wilson, Will Ferrell, Jerry Stiller, and Mila Jovovich. The budget was $28 million, and it only made $60 million worldwide, and we will get into a little bit about why it flopped. Well, it wasn't really a flop, but why it didn't do as well as people thought it was going to. In case you've never seen the movie or haven't seen it in a while, set in the world of high fashion and supermodeling, the film tells the story of dim-witted yet really, really ridiculously good-looking male model superstar Derek Zoolander, played by Ben Stiller, whose career is on the decline with the rise of rival male model Hansel, played by Owen Wilson. As Derek's star wanes, the fashion industry's top brass, led by the eccentric designer Mugatu, played by Will Ferrell, hatch a plan to brainwash Derek into assassinating the Prime Minister of Malaysia, who is on the brink of ending child labor and poverty wages for textile workers in his country. With help from investigative journalist Matilda Jeffries, Christine Taylor, Derek tries to unravel the diabolical plot before he unwittingly commits the assassination. And that's Zoolander, baby.
That is Zoolander.
There it is.
And so for some context, Brian, for when this film was released, in case you forgot all about the year 2001, it was released on September 28th of that year. George W. Bush is beginning his first term as president. In January, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission approves the merger of America Online and Time Warner to form AOL Time Warner. In March, the Bush administration withdraws U.S. support for the 1997 Kyoto Protocol on the reduction of greenhouse gases. Yay.
Cool.
In April, the musical The Producers by Mel Brooks, starring Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, opens on Broadway at the St. James Theater. In June, the Economic Growth and Tax Relief Reconciliation Act of 2001 is signed into law by George Bush, and it's the first of a series of acts which becomes known as the Bush tax cuts. And then on September 10th, Donald Rumsfeld gives a speech regarding $2.3 trillion in Pentagon spending that cannot be accounted for, identifying the bureaucratic processes of the Pentagon as the biggest threat to America.
I bet he's about to rein in all that spending.
Yeah. And then, of course, on September 11th, the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and Pentagon, 2 weeks prior to this film coming out in theaters.
So, Brian, the first thing we ask our guest is, why did you choose this movie to watch on this podcast?
The stranglehold that this movie had on me was like a sleep paralysis demon for 22 and a half years. It was an unbreakable bond. From when I first saw it, when it first came out, I mean, only up until a couple years ago when Zoolander 2 came out, and I accidentally snuck into the premiere party for Zoolander.
What?
You accidentally suck in.
Yeah, that was fucking insane. Yeah, I mean, so the time I was at the premiere party was basically, I was in a bad mood one day, and I had just finished. I was like training, and I was teaching at this martial arts studio, and so I was like really sweaty, and I had my gym bag, and I was like, you know what, I just want to I want to hurt. You know what I mean? I don't know, sometimes if you're in a bad mood in college, you ever smoked a cigarette or you ate bad food, but I was like, I'm going to go to White Castle. And so I went to the White Castle.
Hell yeah.
It was on 8th Avenue. And I went in, it was totally empty. I ordered some and I sat down. And then a couple minutes later, this guy bursts in the door. He's in all leather. His eyes are totally blacked out with eyeliner. Then he orders whatever. And he's like looking around. He's like, where is everybody? And then he goes and I am at a single booth. You know what I mean? One of those at White Castle where they're like, we know you're here to eat alone. And he goes and he sits down across from me in a totally empty restaurant. And he says his name is Kevin, and he's a famous hair and makeup designer. And so he's just sitting there talking to me for 45 minutes to an hour, telling me insane lies constantly. But I'm not, what am I doing? I was supposed to meet up with my friend Julie to go see a show. And I was like, Julie, I'm sorry, I'm getting held up, whatever. And she's like, don't worry about it. Look behind you. I turn around and Julie is pretending to read A Catcher in the Rye in a booth, a couple booths over. We're the only people in here So I was like, Julie, come on over. This is my friend, Kevin, whatever. And he's like, you guys have to come to this party later. There are all these models. They would love to sleep with you. Sofia Vergara would love to sleep with you. And so he's like, you have to come to this party at the Jane Hotel. We leave. Julie and I see the show. After our show, I was like, how are you feeling about that Jane Hotel thing? She's like, we got to go. So we walk there. And as we're walking, we realize we don't know anything about this. We don't know where it is. We don't know what to say. And as we're talking, the bouncer at the Jane Hotel is like, you guys here for the Zoolander party? And we were like, yeah. And so we go in an elevator. It's like, it's upstairs. We go in an elevator behind this group of models. And again, I am still covered in, I am in a tank top. I'm wearing Timberlands. You know what I mean? Julie, of course, like in a hoodie, whatever. We go up, elevator doors open. They let the models in. And I guess they just assume we're with that group. And we look around and we see Aziz Ansari, and we see Jennifer Aniston and Justin Theroux and Ben Stiller and all these people at the rooftop of the Jane Hotel. And we were like, we are not leaving until we are the last people here or we're kicked out. And we didn't get kicked out. We stayed the whole night. We danced. It was an open bar. We like, put our stuff down on the couch because, no one's stealing my stuff here. And we just happened on this Zoolander 2 party, and it was fucking incredible. It was so fun.
Wow. What a New York story.
And accurate. You did accidentally sneak in. Okay, so that's first of incredible. Thank you for that. I don't think we need to do any more podcasts. I think that was it. So what was it like revisiting? I'm assuming, did you rewatch it for this? So what was your experience? And Riv, I'll ask you as well. What was your experience rewatching it now?
My experience rewatching it, it was really colored by my more recent opinions about, or I guess exposure to stuff about Ben Stiller. And that really happens to me a lot now with media where I'm like, I just can't separate, even if it was a thing that I loved, you know what I mean? I can't separate it when I learn something about an actor or somebody who's involved. I'm just looking at them and I'm like, I don't like you anymore. Or, or maybe like just a little suspicion where it takes me out of it a little bit.
Wait, what is the Ben Stiller stuff? I don't actually, I'm
Nothing
not, I'm unaware.
Super salacious, just about like, he is a Nepo baby, Jerry Stiller got him in the industry. And then, he's one of those people who is like, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And we're like, Ben, I don't know about that. And what really, I think, distracted me more than anything was my wife that we were talking about earlier. She was a model for 11 years, and I really had a different and wrong perception of what models were like. And I think a lot of people shared and maybe still share that perception. And a lot of it, I think, was driven by stuff like this and this movie in particular. You know what I mean? There are certainly vapid people and stupid people everywhere. But, there's this kind of image that models, especially, female identifying models that are these like pretty stuck up girls. You know what I mean? They're like really rich and they're really bitchy and they're really superficial. And it wasn't till I started, dating my partner that I learned what the life is really like as a model. And that, these are so often 15 and 16-year-old girls who either move to the city and are scouted and are here. Yeah. And there are these really, really predatory promoters that really take advantage of these young women who are like, hey, we'll give you a free dinner, but before you can go to the dinner, you have to come to the club. And you got to come to the club for a certain amount of time. And so I think that really lent itself to like, oh, these aren't like mean, bitchy, stuck-up women. These are just like hungry girls that these horny guys in clubs are trying to hit on, talk to. And they're just like, I just want dinner. I don't have another job. This is where my money is coming from. I need a free meal. And even in the movie in Zoolander, they depict the model apartment, which is a very common thing. Agencies will put up models in what's called a model apartment where they group them together in a living space. That's like a Friends level, beautiful Big Daddy. Where is this apartment in New York City?
Sure.
Gorgeous, gorgeous space. And the reality of model apartments is like, it's not a free space. The rent is taken out of their paychecks, and they are dilapidated. They're not taken care of. They're crammed in there all together. Everything is broken. like really, really gross, sad situations for these girls who are trying to work. I didn't even realize in modeling, anytime you see somebody on a runway show that's like in Paris or whatever, they're paying for their room and board. They pay for the flight. They're not like, unless
Wow.
you are super, super famous, it's an industry where they cannot unionize. They have no
Wow.
representation and no bargaining power, because it's like there is certainly a skill to it, which is essentially making photographers think that they are, not that no photographer is talented, but making the photographer feel like that they are the one who is in control and coming up with these beautiful,
Right.
images and poses and dynamic, being creative in that way. But you can go to a high school. You can find a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old beautiful girl and be like, hey, you want to make $5,000 and I'll
Yeah.
put you on the cover or something.
Ugh.
So it's pretty easy
It's unbelievably exploitative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that really colored my rewatching of the movie, of like, oh, this is like, it's making fun of the people who are the victims. And it's also like, Mugatu and the bookers and these people are bad and capitalist and all that. And even Maury Ballstein, played by Jerry Stiller, was supposed to be an homage, I think, to Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you see him, grabbing ass in the hallway.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and so it's like, yeah, we're making fun of those
Tushy
people, but
squeeze.
really, yeah. But the butt of the joke is always, how stupid are these models?
Yeah.
And to me, I was like,
Yeah.
that's a shame, because these are like kids a lot of time who are, just people trying to make money.
Yeah, I think all of that absolutely tracks. There was a lot, and thank you for sharing that. I learned a lot. I didn't know that I guess I never thought about it, but yeah, there's no unions for models, which is so awful.
Yeah, because they can't withhold the labor. So in so many of these jobs, even asking for a bathroom break on these 8-hour, you're standing for 8 hours on concrete in prototype heels. And, Mick would tell me stories of like, hey, can I go to the bathroom? And they're like, now's not a good time. You know what I mean? They just really treat you like a living mannequin. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
everything you ask for or need is a burden.
Which tells us so much psychologically about, again, the role that narcissism plays inside of capitalism, that we are fed this idea that it is some kind of, that somehow it's enough to be witnessed and seen, and that ideology, which is used for actors too, right, of like, you're being seen, you're getting paid through exposure, right? That you're getting paid through exposure, that's going to build your career, but also just like, don't you want to just, like, you must be a model because you want to be seen. And I think that's playing on this, right? You must be a model because you're vain, because there's
Yeah.
something that you're getting from the narcissism of it, which I think actors get as well. But I think that's important because it's another one of those subtle ways in which we forget the actual economy. If you took out models from this economy, you wouldn't be selling shit. I mean, think about how much shit is sold to you just by, like, we interact with that so much, and those are human beings, and it just all adds to the project of separating us from the understanding of like the humanity and the laborers and the workers, and making it just seem like this thing that like everybody wants to participate in this economy in this way because they're actually getting something that's better than healthcare or food.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's so many insane, on top of that, models are sometimes not paid in money. Sometimes they're paid in clothes. And
Oof.
they're often paid in just like, oh, well, this is the equivalent of however many $100, but there'll be clothes that they can't wear. There'll be sizes that can't be sold or that they have in surplus that the person doesn't fit the person,
Right.
and they don't get to choose. And another thing that came to mind watching this movie was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but Zoolander, this character, before the movie was actually, Ben Stiller made it up for New York Fashion Week, for a sketch for New York Fashion Week.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, which is just, Fashion Week is famous. I don't know if you guys saw Triangle of Sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it on the pod.
In Triangle of Sadness, as I'm sure you'll remember, the whole scene of the runway show on Fashion Week is so accurate of like, the climate is dying. Don't you care? And meanwhile, the fashion industry is one of the top contributors, you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
pollution and all this waste of like thrown out garments, stuff like that. So it just seems a little mean-spirited that like, wait a minute. And I know the 90s were a different time, or early 2000s, when this came out, and we're viewing it through a different lens. But looking back, you're just like, wait a minute. So the joke you did wasn't like, again, for the models and for the people working, laughing. You were like, I am going to be the, dumb model for
a dumb
everybody
guy.
here to
Yeah.
laugh at. I'm the dumb guy. I am all of you. And so who's really laughing there? Whoever it's going to be, the buyers, the designers, or the famous people who are there to watch the fashion show. But you are, again, making fun of the people who are working insane hours, have no benefits, have no control. Oftentimes, they're in cases where these companies, again, will like claim bankruptcy. That's why you need an agency, because they'll try and not pay you really, really hard. They will often,
Yeah.
as a model, try to not pay you. And the only reason you really need an agent is to have somebody go after them and get your money. And then the agency is taking 20%. And then these are really, really predatory contracts, modeling contracts to begin with. Any likeness that you have, anything that you create anytime in the future, you know what I mean? These are just crazy because, again, they don't have a union.
Well, this is kind of, I feel like, part and parcel of a lot of the conversation that was happening, especially at the beginning of the writer's strike and the actor's strike, where you would hear like the sentiment from the broader public of, oh, why are these writers and actors complaining? They make so much money. What a glamorous lifestyle. They barely, acting isn't even real labor. It's not work. And I think this is such an important point where like especially in like creative industries, yes, someone's not working on an assembly line with a hammer, but you're right. Like standing in high heels in front of hot lights and like holding your body and like posing and like nailing it every time and not being able to pee and, sitting in a makeup chair, going through costume change, all of like the dieting and the exercise and the everything, all that is so much work. And it's an important thing to highlight that there is like any kind of labor that is creating some sort of value. Like Rivka, you're saying, like if models don't exist, we don't have advertisements where people wear clothes or like sit on bicycles or whatever. Like they are creating so much value for these companies. And you're right. It's such a shame that they don't have a union. I have to imagine it would just be like a Herculean organizing effort. That my base assumption, but yeah, it'd be really cool to see the modeling industry organize in the coming decades.
I mean, even beyond, one step perhaps beyond that too, is like your value is not derived from your job in society. You know what I mean? It's just like this is still a person. And, just because you don't like that job, or you don't think it's a hard job, or there are harder jobs out there. And again, it's physically demanding. It's emotionally demanding for how you're treated. It is unconscionable, the things they say, especially to these young women, but to young men as well. And that's not even talking about the common and continuing practice of sexual predators in positions of power.
Yeah.
If you want to book certain campaigns, well, if you want to, you have to be willing to sleep with this guy. And these are just, now there are more groups than there were of outing these people, or conversations of like, hey, be careful of this person, or this person's a predator. But there's no accountability for any of those people. It's so funny to hear. And the conversation is dead now, which is also so horrifying to think about. But a little after Me Too started, there were all those conversations about, is it going too far? Has Me Too gone too far? And it's like, we've arrested 2 people. You know what I mean? There was Harvey Weinstein, and then there was that woman on Supernatural who was involved in the sex trafficking ring. And then it was like
Nexium, yeah. Allison Mack.
Yeah. Oh, and then, Bill Cosby, but then he was out, and then he was whatever. And it's just like, guys, I think we've kind of done it. You know what I mean? We got him all.
It's a little much now. Calm down.
Yeah.
I think we fixed sexual predation.
Yeah.
Full
and
stop.
So it's like, of course, in corporate America and all these places, still rampant, but like even where the spotlight was, in the entertainment industry, still incredibly, incredibly prevalent. And so, I mean, I don't think there is that focus anymore like there really used to be in the 2000s, where, what was her name? Jennifer no, Simpson, something Simpson.
Jessica.
Jessica Simpson.
Jessica Simpson. I remember people were like tearing her apart, limb from limb, for being like, oh, stupid bimbo. Oh, now she's fat. Oh, now she's. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Absolutely, yeah. Brutal, ruthless celebrity culture in that early part of the 2000s, for sure.
Yeah, and it was just the normalization of, well, you're famous, so your life is easy, you know. And there's definitely privilege in being in the limelight, but it's also just that whole thing of like, I don't know, the dehumanization of these people who are actually people, you know what I mean, who like see what you say, and then, you know, younger kids who are hearing that and seeing that or normalizing that or feeling bad about themselves. It's nuts, and it's, you know, perpetuated in different insidious ways with, like, you know, Marvel and superheroes and every guy who now wants to be in shape or feel good about themselves. Well, you got to look like that. And, you know, I do think there is now a much more normalized pushback to that when you have like Rob McElhenney, the guy who, you know, created It's on Always Sunny. He got absolutely just goofed up for one season of that show. He got so buff. He was just fucking nasty. He looks great. But he had a whole thing about, you know, yeah, I don't know why everybody doesn't do this. You know, all it takes is, you know, training 3 times a day, a personal trainer, a personal chef, a dedicated studio, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, this is totally attainable.
And a lot of drugs.
Yeah, and a lot of drugs. And the drug thing too. Sorry to rant so long, but like, I just feel like, I don't know, it's not the end of it's not bad if you want to get Botox, if you want to get a facelift, if you want to take steroids. But there is something bad about being like, I'm natural, baby. You know what I mean? You are just like plastic.
Yeah, this costs nothing. This is free.
Yeah.
And if you don't look like this, there's something wrong with you. It's not that you can't
You're
afford.
just not trying, sweetheart. You're just not meant for the limelight. And it's like, you're not ugly, you're poor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
God.
if you want to do those things, just like being honest about what it is and what you're doing. If you're a gym rat and you want to get huge, get huge. Like, yeah, no judgment there. That's awesome.
I wanted to jump in and ask, maybe unpack something with you too, because I was trying to figure out, I was like, there's something here that I was picking up on this rewatch. And it has to do with sort of what I think we were learning about America's relationship to the rest of the world. And, you know, the fact that we were getting on the internet, and I was, you know, 2001 was like a big pivotal year just for me, not for anyone else. But, you know, I happened to be in New York for 9/11, the only one. But it was, I was just like also.
And I was in New Jersey, but, you know.
Very young. There were just so many pivotal things. And then the fact that we were also, AOL, the internet, expanded our relationship to the rest of the world and how accessible our global relations were in that sense. And this film and sort of Austin Powers just dawned on me how cartoonish it sort of made the international characters are. And like the film starts with this international syndicate of fashion designers, and it just occurred to me, I was like, where is this going? So I was watching it carefully the whole time, recognizing that there's a very clear, like, we obviously, even though Derek Zoolander is what do they call him? A beautiful, self-absorbed simpleton who can be manipulated and molded like Jell-O. Even though he's all these things, we love him. And there's this odd thing that as you're listening to Zoolander, clearly it wasn't like this at the time, although Donald Trump is in this movie. People, when they do their Trump impressions, if they're not like really, really good, you're like, are you doing Zoolander or Trump? Okay, I'm piecing this all together. Go with me.
Okay.
Something about this like sweet, dumb character who is sort of going to be the assassin, doesn't mean to be, can be easily manipulated. There was this like represents the US. There's like a very like US versus the international enemies here. And then at the end of the film, the president of Malaysia says, thank you, Derek Zoolander, for saving my life. Zoolander wasn't even thinking about that, but you're like very clearly somehow in that I was like, oh, America wins. Like that was the message that I got through this convoluted, you know, I was like, America wins. And
Interesting.
Then also Matilda, who we're following, is like the smart journalist who ends up, you know, falling in love with Zoolander, and her journey is fascinating. We'll get more into it. But in this moment between her and Katinka, who's very much the Russian, the Russian evil character.
Model slash hit woman.
Yeah, model slash hit woman. And she keeps calling Matilda Kmart. And at the end, she's like, no, I'm JC Penney. And as I was trying to figure out, like, what is the political messaging of this movie 2 weeks after 9/11, there was just something there that I want to see if maybe you can help me, like, clarify. But there was this, like, international community bad, America good, America dumb, but America good, international community smart, but evil. Am I onto something?
You're onto something, but I had kind of like the inverse read on this, where like this is the first time I realized it on this rewatch. And I should say, high school, college, this was like a movie that was just on in the background all the time.
Yeah. Like,
I don't remember when it became a cult classic, but at some point someone was like, yo, Zoolander actually one of the best comedies of the 21st century. Like if anything like preceded the like was the harbinger for the Judd Apatow revolution of comedy in the early 2000s.
Wow, revolution of comedy.
I mean, whatever you want to call it. Like you just like sure, that's maybe a sensationalist terminology.
It's been said, Frank.
The Judd Apatow takeover of comedy, whatever you want to call it. But I remember seeing this movie 2 weeks after 9/11 and by myself in a movie theater as a little fucking 13-year-old boy, and I remember not being able to register any of the comedy because I was just like, I'm pretty sure there's some really terrible things happening in the world right now. And it just like was completely lost on me in that moment. But my read on it in this rewatch was that this is actually a pretty, and there are problematic stuff in this movie for sure, but this is like a pretty good allegory for like U.S. intervention in international communities to protect U.S. financial interests. Because that's at the core what is happening. Like, and I thought it was actually smart and good that they were like, the movie opens with like, the Malaysia has elected this new prime minister and he's going to end child labor and end poverty wages. Like, this is like an objectively good thing. Smash cut to the fashion syndicate just like, well, we have to kill this guy because this is going to eat into our profits. So like, who are we going to find to kill this guy? And I thought that was like, that's a tried and true story trope, you know, like evil U.S. company or evil U.S. government agency, usually like the CIA or the FBI, is like, hey, we got some financial interests in this other country. We should probably, you know, kill some people over there or overthrow their government just to protect our financial interests. So I thought like as sort of like the linchpin of the plot of this movie, I thought that was pretty strong. And it's not like the most perfect, it's not the most perfect execution in terms of like, you know, nuance or thoughtfulness. And they have a lot of fun mispronouncing the name of the country, Malaysia, which watching it today, I'm like, that's kind of just like dumb racist humor. But I mean, I was happy to see that as sort of like the central linchpin of the plot, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I have to contribute to this is that I saw somewhere that Zoolander might still be banned in Malaysia. In Malaysia.
Oh, wow.
But you can't watch it. But it is, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, that is such a common and real thing, especially for our country when there's like, for, you know, moneyed interests abroad that are being messed with. That way, I don't know if you've seen that clip of some like former CIA higher up director who's being interviewed, and the interviewer was like, oh, well, you know, the United States, you know, was never involved in any coups. And the guy was like, well, you know, I don't know about that. She's like, oh, okay, but like, we don't do that stuff anymore. And he's like, well, I wouldn't say we don't, you know what I mean, do it.
Was that the one with John Bolton from like earlier this year?
Oh, it might have been.
He's like, I have helped plan a coup d'etat. Let me tell you, it is not that easy. Okay,
Yeah,
give me some credit, please.
But like, I don't know. It's just like right now there is a strike going on for garment workers. I think in Bangladesh for
Yes.
you know, that affects like H&M and Zara and all these people that use laborers that are paid, you know, sub-livable wages in another country to produce massive amounts of clothing that are just, you know, it's fast fashion. Yeah, it's real. It's happening right now. So I think, you know, in that way, the movie is still it holds up really well, you know, in terms of like its relevance in the messaging.
I just want to push back because I hear you. That was my initial first was like, oh, this was here. I don't necessarily remember that. And then I was like, is that part of the danger? Would this fall under like capitalist realism in the most dangerous sense that they say sweatshops, they say this, the bad guys are this, but at the end of the day, you don't even, just like Zoolander doesn't remember like why he's being thanked. We kind of end up being like, wait, what are you talking about? We don't remember by the end of the film what it was about anyways, because it really becomes about Zoolander's journey. And the real win is that Zoolander gets a center for kids who can't read good. You know, like there is something fascinating with this genre of film. Like, because the 2000s had also, Austin Powers was clearly a big influence on this. And I think a big influence on Ben Stiller was talking about like one of the reasons he wanted to make this film was because of the Austin Powers series and that international man of mystery. And there's just something, I don't know. I feel like that was something I got in a really bad way, like as a teen from this, was just a very glossy over, like, oh, we're saying sweatshops, so like it's fine. You know, there's just some kind of normalization thing that's happening here that I didn't feel like I could give it the merit that I wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, I felt suspicious.
That's fair. It's not the most intellectual vehicle for this message, for this political message of like, financial interests will commit violence to protect their financial interests. So, like, you're right. It is a very zany, off-the-walls comment. So it's not the best vehicle. It's not like a Josie and the Pussycats, which just, like, nails the satire and the messaging from top to bottom and is just, like, completely ingrained in every part of the storytelling.
And is a lot more violent, Josie and the Pussycats. Actually had a lot more violence. Like, this was very... I don't know. Again, I still think there's something dangerous about it, and I can't quite put my finger on it.
But there's something I think that's really effective, too, because just like, I mean, Trump has got to be one of, if not the funniest presidents we've ever had. I mean, he's evil.
Hands down.
But he's so fucking funny. And there is something about being able to be funny that you can really, it's so much more effective in getting your message across to people who disagree with you, as opposed to yelling facts at them, as opposed to showing them the horrors of whatever, you know, you find really compelling. And so I think there is something important and good. And it's like, no, this movie was not going to show the real visceral reality of what's going on. And it's not going to be like, we solved the problem. You know, I think it's good in a way to be like, hey, we saved this one guy and we helped these kids, but structurally, nothing changes. You know what I mean? Like, he's still in the modeling industry. Those people are not taken down, who are like the shadowy people.
And you think that's good? Is that what you're saying, Brian?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, yeah, I think it's good. I think
Let's make this Zoolander convo spicy.
But I think it's good.
You like that?
Yeah, I'm pro that.
You're against systemic change. You
I'm
only want.
So sick of this upcycling bullshit. Just give me a fucking diamond T-shirt I can wear once. No, I mean, I think it's good because it at least brings in the conversation of like, oh yeah, you know, like people are greedy. You know what I mean? Like, it is lampooning the United States government, or, you know, companies like Chevron who do horrible things abroad in the name of their capital. You know what I mean? And so like the movie didn't solve anything, but at least it like affirms that like, hey guys, this is happening. You know what I mean? And bringing that into the consciousness, because even if it's not perfect or if it doesn't solve it, it is something where before that, you know, there was nothing.
Does it not in some ways serve this bigger picture of, we said it, we gently lampooned it, but ultimately no one's going to care. And if we sold you a Zoolander t-shirt and merch, you would go and buy it and not think once about who made it. Like, isn't in that 100%. Sense, it's actually more, it's like, to me, it's more dangerous when you do, isn't that in some ways more insidious? Like, I don't know that anyone's leaving like, I never heard about sweatshops before. Like, I think it's priming the American audience of like, oh yeah, but this is something that evil internationalists do. And then, but there's really like a heart of gold at the heart of like our intentions I don't know. Again, I love this movie. It was just so a part of the fabric of my makeup that I'm just thinking through this lens critically about, like, what did this do to me?
I think that totally makes sense, but you also have to understand that so much of this audience and so much of the people who loved it, I think I was in the 5th grade, so I don't know that I knew about sweatshops. And I left
And
the
did
movie
you leave?
being-
Was that your takeaway as a 5th grader?
Yeah, and that's
Really?
what started me on my journey.
That was
but,
bigger
like-
than orange mocha frappuccino. I don't mean to grill you, Brian, but I just
please do.
feel feisty about Zoolander suddenly.
No, but I think both of those, you can hold both of those to be true, where at the end of the day, I left and like, that's a funny movie. I want to be Derek Zoolander. Look, I can do the face too. But in the back of my mind, it's like the base reality of the movie is Mugatu is evil. The base reality of the movie is these people who are controlling Derek are bad, and the guys who are good are Matilda is really like the grounded straight person in the movie. You know what I mean? Or you have
right.
even...
But you just said exactly my point. Like, Mugatu's bad. We get caught up in all that, and I think at the end of the day, it's like we intentionally forget about the real... Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm actually saying I think it's probably more dangerous than not. And I love this movie.
I hear you. And actually, in discussing this right now, I'm realizing that, like, I totally forgot that this part of the plot. Whenever I think of Zoolander, I wasn't like, oh, that's right, that movie about the model who, like, unravels an international conspiracy to, like, overthrow a government of another country. Like, that's not the first thing that comes to mind. So I think you're partially right. I think both are right. I think both...
Oh, wow. Strong take. Frank.
Good people on both sides. Good people on both sides. No, but
And we're just going to take that soundbite.
just that clip and put it out. But I genuinely do. I do see merits in what both of you are saying. I think in that, like, I think it's valuable to have, and we've talked about this before on the show. Like, I think it's valuable to have stories like this or like plot threads like this in popular culture, because I would rather they exist rather than not exist. Conversely, this can fall into the realm of like the performative anti-capitalism or the performative societal critique, which can give the audience the feeling of like, oh wow, Derek Zoolander beat those guys. Everything must be good now.
Even if Zoolander doesn't remember what he was fighting for.
Doesn't remember what he was fighting for.
So what I hear you saying, Frank, is that moisture is the essence of wetness, and wetness is
the essence of beauty.
Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the cameos in this movie, though, were shocking. On top of Donald
Every
Trump.
single person.
But, like, I don't think... Does Vince Vaughn have a line?
No,
it's
Vince,
crazy.
did not even have a line. And that was Judah Freelander as the other brother. I did not recognize
really?
it. Yeah.
Spice Girls,
Spice
Fabio.
Girls. Cuba Gooding Jr., Natalie Portman. I actually looked up. I was like, how did they get Tom Ford, Tommy Hilfiger? I was like, how did they get all these people on the red carpet? They actually shot those opening scenes at the actual 2000 VH1 Vogue Fashion Awards.
Oh my!
So they were just like they just had like another unit team on the red carpet being like, hey, we're shooting for a movie Zoolander. Can you guys just pretend like this famous model Zoolander?
This is another reason,
brilliant.
actually, it made me think of like why there might be potential not great things about how this was done, just to keep going with this, is that if Tommy Hilfiger's in, we had so many celebrities in this. It almost felt like, well, I was in that movie where the bad guy was the person who, who was trying to stop the wage increases for children making clothing. But like, dude, you're doing that in real life. Like and I think it becomes this cover. This is like a PR campaign.
Like greenwashing.
Yeah, this was not an A24 profit sharing movie in 2001. You know what I mean? Like, this was still like...
But I mean, like, this kind of media plays that role, I think, so people can be like, it had a good message. And you're like, but you're going to go out and do your same shit and then feel good because it had a good message. Very liberal.
Yeah, I will say, though, that it's like, I am very much for, I had been saying in my life recently that things are going very well in my life. And I'm at a point right now where like things are really going to start clicking and coming together in a really great and exciting way, or I'm going to fight a cop. And I really feel like it's like one of these two, you know what I mean? It's just like so close.
Why can't they be why can't they both be the same? Yeah.
Please, I wish I lived in a dreamland. I wish I lived in your little gorgeous utopia, Frank.
Your A24 film.
Yeah, but it's just to say, I don't know. I lost the train of thought there. Who cares? But so it's just to say, like, I am somebody who is like, yeah, let's press these people. I'm left of Mao. I'm very, very progressive. But you also, I think there is a danger in viewing every piece of media or every part of our lives, especially from pieces of media that came out before we had more of a social consciousness or a social awareness of, people's rights, or, that to think too critically about, the type of media or art that was made. It's an interesting exercise, but I don't think it devalues, what those things were and what they
What is the
meant.
danger?
Well, the danger is that, like, of course, everything made in the 2000s or in the 90s is not going to align with at least my political sensibilities. I didn't at the time. And my favorite war criminal, Barack Obama, used to say, the woke need to leave room for the waking. And he was absolutely right, where it's like in an argument, you can either go to somebody and be like, you are fucking stupid, pig-headed, you are voting against your own interests, so on and so forth. But it's like, there was a time when I didn't know these things. And what's my goal here? To help more people, to help the planet. And what is the means to do that? Well, it's not to be combative every time. There are times when we need to fight. But I think there are also times where we need to give some grace to people's ignorance, because you don't know stuff until you know it. And also the enjoyment in your life, where it's like, this is a piece of art that brought you joy. And it's your choice, it's our choice, but like, we will be poorer for it in our lives if, I had this moment in college, and, we all went to school together there, especially freshman year. I didn't go to a performing arts high school, and we show up, and there was a class where you're in a leotard or a unitard, and you have a scarf around your waist, and we're walking around the room, and we're going, key, key. We must all be very kind to one another. This is not an exaggeration. This is literally what we did. $200,000.
Can confirm. Yep, we did this.
And I had most of my freshman year, I was like furious. I was like, this is a fucking waste of time. I should leave and I should become a park ranger. And this is dumb. And it took me a long time to realize that it's like, you don't win anything by being the grumpiest guy in the room, by having the worst time there. You know what I mean? And you actually stop yourself from getting any value out of so many experiences by shutting yourself off and focusing on, really only, and this is for me, but like only what's wrong, only what's stupid about this. And it's really a mechanism to keep yourself emotionally distant and emotionally safe. So I think your criticisms are absolutely valid. But I also think the danger, which was your question, is that, we may lose sight of the fun or enjoyment in art and in imperfect media, which should be criticized, but also, has a place, did exist, and will continue to exist.
I hear that. I feel like we want the same thing.
Money.
Which is to be able to hold both. And I will say, what did you say, Ryan?
He said money. That's true. We all want it, baby.
We do all want money. No, it's to hold both. And I feel passionate about it because I don't think you're saying this, but I think a lot of people have the fear that if they are critical of something, they will have to lose it. Mm-hmm. And I want to just encourage that is a very strong fear that I think is very much a part of our culture as Americans. And it's very much a part of capitalism. Capitalism is like, nope, you're not going to be able to enjoy it. So just don't look. Don't look. So you can still enjoy. And I want to encourage us to say, like, we can take this movie apart probably more than it merits or needs to be for fun and also for educational purposes and still enjoy the fuck out of it. But I do want to say, like, people, I think, are afraid of criticism for those reasons. They don't want to ruin something, and they don't want something to be taken away. But ultimately, like, things will change, like we said, as we grow, and your experience watching this and seeing it differently because your partner's in the industry now, and you can't, it is sad. Things do change and shift, and we can still enjoy them.
That's actually a really good segue, Riv, to like the last big point I want to hit about this movie is about that exact dynamic, is about like growing up and now living in an age where we understand, where we have more context for who is the butt of the jokes in some of these scenarios, like at whose expense these jokes are being played for. And something that was really really highlighted in this rewatch was like, there are some bits in this movie that I have seen 5 million times that to this day, yesterday, I was like laughing my ass off at. You know, like you googly, like think merman, the black lung, like so many things that I was like, this is still funny today. On the opposite side, there's a ton of jokes in this movie that I was like, oh, gross. Like there's like like I said, there's some like tacit racism in the way that they're like pronouncing things. You mentioned Jerry Stiller doing like a straight up like sexual assault in his office, played for laughs. You know, like there's the whole like making fun of Matilda's eating disorder. The disguise scene is kind of like when they're fully disguised,
blackface,
almost blackface, and you know, so. Noticing those things, and on this watch I was like, oh, that's a bummer, that's gross, that's a crime. And being able to recognize those things while still deriving like a lot of enjoyment from the film on the whole. And I think that kind of is what you're speaking to, Riv, which is like, it like we can be critical of these things, and just because someone is pointing out the fact that like there's some problematic jokes or there's some like casual racism or whatever, doesn't mean it's not the same thing as people being like, you are not allowed to watch Zoolander anymore. Zoolander canceled. It's gone. It's not. You can't even stream it. We've taken it off. It doesn't even exist anymore. So, because I think that's how a lot of people, especially like, you know, conservatives, you know, free speech absolutists, kind of get it twisted, where they're like, oh, you're telling me that like I'm not allowed to do this anymore. It's like, no, we're just like pointing out some like shit that isn't cool, and like you're taking that as like a personal threat to your individual liberty.
Right. Like, if these are the films that made us, how did they make us in all ways as well? How many Abo Digitals do you see modeling?
Yeah, exactly. Although, oh my God, Jerry Stiller, when he calls his wife on the runway at the end, that is still, I think that is my favorite part.
So
that is my
good.
favorite joke in the whole movie.
Oh, it's so
Get off at the expressway and then just take it the whole way here. We'll put it in some Tupperware, put it in the fridge. I'll eat it when I get back.
One of the things that I think was the best learning, because there's two moments that I just would hate to not bring up. One is obviously, which I'm more critical of, is how bulimia is brought up, and they really try, and it's so sad because I'm thinking like, I was probably just about to become bulimic myself at that point in my life, and just how terribly they manage that, and how many other teenage girls post 9/11 about to be, you know, because what we understand about bulimia is like it's really nothing to do with vanity or the pursuit of that. Well, that all of our society feeds in that way, and the pressures of fitting in, and which she kind of speaks to in her strange little monologue that she gives while they're drinking. Matilda does while she's drinking that tea with Derek and Hansel, and he says, like, he interrupts her when she says, I was a fat kid, and he says, ew, which it's really hard not to laugh because he delivers it really well. But I laughed, and I was like, that is so painful. It's so painfully fat phobic for a film that was pushed towards teenagers. They wanted to make it rated R, and they like pushed to make it not, which tells you like they wanted a young audience. They thought this was going to do well with a young audience. So for anyone who was not model skinny watching this film, you're getting all of this like microaggression towards your body, even though they claim to be satirizing it, which is where I have, you know, when a satire is just kind of this low-key mocking, you're like, it does more harm than good. And then they kind of admit like they're bulimic, and they normalize it in a way that I think maybe an adult brain can understand, but it ultimately normalizes it. It ultimately is like very, very harmful. And I think it's just, I was like, wow, that's really, thinking about my own journey, I'm like, what a harmful piece of media.
And they don't cap that conversation with anything like helpful or like
an orgy.
Like actually,
they cap it with
like,
an orgy.
They cap it with an orgy. Yeah, but like, but like the conversation ends with Zoolander and Hansel being like, yeah, we do that too. Next subject. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like really, really glossed over.
Well, it's interesting to bring up that like an adult can understand, because when I was watching it, I mean, that appeals to me in the same way, because she does push back as the voice of reason, being like, it's a disease. And we're back to like, we're making fun of these stupid models, but like, she is the voice of reason being like, no, you guys are victims too. Yeah. But it's interesting to hear that it's like, well, from a kid's perspective, as a kid picking that up.
Yeah, you don't want to be Matilda as a kid. You're like, I want to be the models. They're the ones with the power in this world.
It's a similar thing to like a South Park thing, where it's like, wow, South Park really makes fun of everybody, you know what I mean? And they are making fun of people who are overly sensitive, and these are just words, and we're all people, and everybody is weird. And it's like, is that what everybody who's watching South Park takes away? Or is it doing an impression of Cartman? You know what I mean? That it's like fun that you can say whatever you want and you get to be mean. And so, you know, who knows what the Matt and Trey's, you know, real intention is, but there's a real intellectual defense of like, no, we're, you know, this is what we're pointing out. We're highlighting, you know, the hypocrisy, or how silly these people sound. But what the real-time takeaway is from the intended audience, I think you're right. It can be totally different and harmful.
Contrastingly, socio-emotionally, I thought the scene between Derek and Hansel when they make up was like taught a lot of really good things that I hope translated when they're like, oh, because they have this rival, and it's like, dude, I just love you. You're my idol. Like, I just thought that was really like impactful and probably did a lot of good because it broke down that sort of toxic masculine need to be competitive, and they could just be like, I love you. I love you.
Yeah, that was really lovely when he's like, I feel threatened by you. Or like, I look up to you.
All right, well, I could continue talking about this movie forever. It's one of my favorites. But this is the point of the episode where we hand out awards for this movie. So we got 3 of them. Brian, the first award is Best Politics. This goes to the character with the best politics in the movie.
So this is, I think, a little tough. I think it's either the Prime Minister of Malaysia, who the whole movie is about him ending child labor. But for our principal cast, I would say Matilda, the reporter, because she is the one, you know, who's giving this voice of reason and constantly from the outside being like, you know, is this important? You're in danger. Your life is being threatened. You're being exploited, you know, and she's helping fighting the machine. So I think those are the 2 strongest candidates.
I think like societally, Prime Minister of Malaysia. Also want to give a shout out to J.B. Pruitt, the greatest hand model of all time, the finger jockey, played by David Duchovny, who's like, you know, he's been spending the last several decades of his life unraveling this global conspiracy. So, you know, he's put his body on the line.
He's doing the work. He's on the ground.
He's doing the work, exactly. All right, our next award is Worst Politics. Character with the worst politics in the movie.
It's hard to say if it's Mugatu or if it's the Mugatu's overlords, the people who are, you know what I mean, controlling him. I feel like Mugatu is worse because there seems to be some like autonomy in there. This is like self-preservation. You know what you're doing is evil. You don't care. I mean, you know, the bigger people are doing the same, but they almost, to me, in my mind, it's like, I am hopeful for our future, but not because I think we're going to change older billionaires' minds. I'm hopeful for our future because they're going to die. You know what I mean? And Mugatu is a character where it's like, you had a choice, you lived a different life, you are consistently choosing this bad, naughty behavior.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mugatu, and also I forgot to mention when we were talking, so I guess that's a good place to put it in, is we didn't talk about Derelict. Mugatu.
Oh my God!
I mean, and Derelict is probably actually one of the most
I don't even consider
salient parts of satire, where they're really satirizing. Like John Galliano in 2000 had a fashion line that was all about the homeless as aesthetic objects, and so they're clearly making fun of that. But I think what is so wild is since 2001, there have been so many moments where you've seen designers get criticized for this, and then they reference Derelict in the criticism. So like this movie comes, and then you have just, it's one of those.
I mean,
weird...
the whole like cosplaying as poor is a whole thing. I remember when CBGB's shut down, a John Vervatos store took its place, which is so funny. This high-end fashion brand that, like, you know, it's like we're rockers. And so I went in to see what it was like in there, and I tried on a sweater, and the sweater had holes in it, and they were like, wow, that looks really good on you. And it was $3,000.
Of course it was.
It's
Of
like,
course.
oh, does it look good on me, dog? Do you promise you're not just saying that? Insane.
It's like, no, I've never said that to any customer ever.
Yeah,
You just look so good.
Yeah. Somebody else behind the cashier is like, wow, honestly, he never says that. He's never nice. He's the mean one.
I think you're both right. I think it has to go to Mugatu from, he's trying to plot an assassination and the Derelict campaign. And also, for the first time ever, I was like, at the end when he's exposed and he's like essentially caught, he's like, all right, well, I'm going to kill this guy anyway. It's like, what, dog? It's like, dog, you're caught. Like, the jig is up. So yeah, Mugatu. All right, last award is Best Supporting Character / Spinoff. Goes to the supporting character that this movie should actually be about.
I don't know that this is true in any way, but is it Alexander Skarsgård?
Yes. This is where I was going as well. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yep.
He has 3 lines in the movie and is so fun and is so joyful.
He's like 13 years old.
He's
too.
like 13 years old. And also, when you look him up on IMDb, I don't know if you've seen his IMDb profile picture.
For those
Incredible.
listening, he doesn't have pants on, and he's like in a tux.
The dream. He's so good.
Yeah, that was going to be my choice too. I would watch a movie about the model apartment that Derek lives in with those 3 other guys, because honestly, and something that I had never clocked, I was like, this is like a really supportive male environment. Like, and which we don't see that often, especially this era. We don't see like a place where it's just like a bunch of hetero men just being like, yo, dude, like, we're here for you. Like, what do you, like, we want to take care of you. Like, we're good. Like, how can we help? We're a family. So I thought that was really nice to see. And, obviously they all explode in a giant fireball, gasoline fire, but.
Let's hold his time.
Yeah, absolutely. The other shout out I'd give is to Todd, Mugatu's personal assistant, played by
Classic.
an actor named Nathan Lee Graham. And, Todd's seen. I'm just like, what does Todd know? What has Todd seen? What is this world like through maybe? But I feel like Todd gets a HBO series or something about personal assistants.
Oh,
Ooh.
absolutely. Like an Entourage. Well, who's Ari's assistant? An Entourage?
Oh.
Similar vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I can't remember his name. It's fine. It's probably better that we don't remember anything from Entourage.
Yeah.
So, alas, we have to close this conversation. This was fun, and thank you for letting me get feisty with you, Brian.
It got heated. Didn't think it was going to get so
Who would have
so
thought?
heated on the Zoolander pod.
But before we let you go, we would like to ask you how you, as an artist, as a person in your everyday life, how do you practice your values, be them anti-capitalist, or just your values, your anti-capitalist values?
Yeah, those would be good.
That's what this show's about. I don't know why I'm tiptoeing around
Yeah.
it.
No, sure. Never be afraid, which is why I support a company called Amazon. If you ever get the chance, all of my money, every extra dollar. They're so cool. No, so there's a couple of very fun things. I don't know if you guys have talked about this before, but we have just gotten into this thing called Free Cycle. I don't know if you guys ever use this. We just had so much like shit around the house that we can't use anymore and have no one would ever buy, like a bunch of tiny skateboards.
You talking like tech decks?
Yeah, I'm talking like tech decks or like little
Okay.
anything that you have lying in your house, somebody wants for something. You know what I mean? An old air conditioner that still kind of works. You can just throw it on Free Cycle. People will come to your apartment and people are so grateful. And we've gotten rid of so much shit in our house. That has been really, really nice. So you should check that out. And I've been hosting a show called Drunk Planet Earth. And there's a woman named Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, and she talks about, she's a climate activist, but really a marine biologist, incredibly cool person who is on a podcast for a long time you should check out called How to Save a Planet. And they talk about like, well, what are these, challenges we face with, the climate change, and then what are the real solutions that we have right now. It's a really, really compelling podcast. But it's just to say, she talks about, in the things that you care about, the best thing you can do is use what skills you have and put them towards, what you're doing, your artistic output, or put them towards your goals. So like what you guys are doing here with this podcast is phenomenal, is exactly that. And my version of that is Drunk Planet Earth, was the show I've been doing since 2017, where we play a nature documentary, usually a Planet Earth, if there's one we haven't seen yet. I'll not have watched the documentary beforehand, and me and another comedian, we watch it. There are drinking rules based on, what happens. And if anybody has a question about an animal on screen, we try and answer it. And if I get it wrong, I have to take a tequila shot. And if I get it right, they get the shot. But it's a great space where then at halftime, we talk about current environmental or, sustainability news for, little prizes or drink tickets. And it's such a fun space. And I've never charged any tickets for it because it's just a fun, lovely show for a bunch of nerdy people who care about animals and the environment. And it's so hard. There used to be so many free or cheap shows, especially in Brooklyn or in the city. And now it's hard to find those because, it's expensive to live here. Everybody wants to make money or whatever. But we have an arrangement with the bar where we bring them 100 people once a month for the night. And so we don't pay them anything and we're not trying to make any money off it. So
when and where is that?
We do. That is the second Friday of every month at Easy Lover, which is a bar off the Graham L stop in Williamsburg. Our next one is
fun.
November 10th, I believe.
Hell yeah.
And what's really exciting about this next one is Planet Earth 3 is just being released now. So this is a new David Attenborough documentary series.
What time did you say it was?
7 p.m. But you're going to want to get there a little early because we have the whole back room, but it fills up really quick. And it's really fun and it's really nice, especially in the fall and winter. In the summer, because it's a free show, a lot of times it's a rowdy crowd that's just looking for free show and drinks and hang out. That's totally great. But oftentimes it just turns into a bunch of bites. So the questions will either be what's the average lifespan of that Eurasian bee eater? And then on rowdy nights, it'll be how many nipples does that rat have? And, both really valid questions. But it's a different vibe depending on who comes to the show. So it's just to say, if you want to come, you're more than welcome. Get there a little early to get a seat, or you can stand in the back. And it's a great, community building thing that we do. And we get to talk about what's going on in environmental news.
Amazing. And Brian, where can our audience find you on the internet?
Yeah.
You can find me at my house, come in groups of 5.
It's not what I asked.
That's fine. You can find me on all the socials at Mora Than Enough. MORATHANENOUGH.
Great handle. Brian, it was so good seeing you, dude. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for picking this movie. Thank you for this absolutely knockdown drag out fight that we had over Derek Zoolander.
Yeah, I'm gonna take an ice bath tonight. That's brutal. Thank you guys for having me. This is so much fun.
Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And if you want to support the show and get access to our premium episodes, you can go to mvcpod.com to find all of that information.
For next week's movie, we'll be kicking off our holiday series with the Jimmy Stewart holiday classic, It's a Wonderful Life.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.